Last week, we explored this photograph and talked about some possible ways to change it to make it a little stronger picture. I've gone in with my pencil and sort of marked out this tree a little bit, which we had decided we were going to remove. Um, and then the other thing we were talking about is whether to leave the house where it is or move it over just a little bit. And I decided to go ahead and move it a little bit to the right. Um, so let's look at so we did a value study, figuring out where the darks were. So we've got a dark framing on the forward part of this, and the framing is actually going to come down into here just a little bit too. And then you have the dark piece of the barn and some little dark shadows. So this is going to be the pattern of dark working through there. Then you've got the midtones of the yellows and the blues. And then this light area in the front is really quite bright, and just about as bright as the lightest side of that barn and the light side on some of these trees. And then our color pattern, it's going to be majority yellow with offsets of blue and gray against that. So it's going to be sort of our color combination. So then I did a final drawing to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And a few of the things that I did was, instead of having this the largest tree like it was in the photograph, I made that a little smaller tree, and I enlarged the tree over here on the left because it felt like that needed the strength there. I moved the house over just a little bit to the right, not very much, and I gave a little bit more space up above because my shape that I have here is actually a little taller than what my photograph was. So that was my finished drawing, which I have then transferred with graphite transfer paper onto my watercolor paper. So I'm not sure how well we're going to be able to see this with the video, but here is my finished piece. Let me get this out of my way. We had talked last week about whether or not I was going to use any resist or if it was going to be totally paint around. So we have some very light places on the sides of these trees, and light place on the side of that tree, light on the side of this building, a couple of the light places here. And I decided that it would be beneficial to do some resist for those very lightest places. The rest of it's all going to be paint around, and these darker trees are going to be darker than the background, so they're going to be something that can be done later. Now, my next decision that I have to make is how am I going to approach putting the paint on here? And after having done our little preliminary color sketch, I'm thinking that a little tiny bit of yellow underneath of this blue is not going to hurt anything because it could go slightly toward the greenish side. So I'm going to wet my entire page and paint several shades of yellow onto here. And just the lightest, brightest parts of it. And then we're going to let it dry, and we will come back and do the other colors after that. But to start with, I'm going to mix up some Aurelian yellow. And you probably can't see my pan here. I'm working on a 12 by 16 piece of paper, which is taking up the entire space here for the for my video. So I'm doing an Aurelian yellow, which is a very light yellowy green. And then I'm going to have some New Gamboge mixed, and I'm going to wet my my leaf green here. And so those are going to be sort of the three colors that are going to go in there. But the Aurelian yellow is going to be the start. Oh, and then the other yellow that we need is, this is my French ultra, blanking out, raw umber. Okay. So let's see, I've got to be careful. I've got to save one of these. That one's out. I got yellow in too. I've got to save one of my waters here to stay totally clean so that when I get this started, I can, okay, that's where that is. I can have fresh, clean water all over that whole thing. So I want to be sure that I have enough yellow mixed up. and I want to wet my new gamboge. I'm just going to be putting a little bit of that in, and same with that beautiful pale green. I'm just going to wet those two areas. Now, next step is going to be to totally wet the page with fresh, clean water. It's a nice flat wash brush with soft bristles. And I've got this on a little bit of a slant. I have a 1-inch board underneath it here on the top end so that the water will run a little bit down toward the bottom. I'm working on an Arches block, 130-pound cold press block. And it was starting to delaminate, so that's why we got a little piece of blue tape here at the bottom to help hold that together so that it doesn't lift up on that bottom edge. It was coming off of its backing board. And let me see if I've got all of my bits covered. I'm looking at this from the side to see if I have any dry spots, which I've got one right there. And then depending on how wet I want this, I might want to pick up a little excess water off of here so it's not too wet, because although we want the colors to run, I don't want them to flood across here. So I'm just picking up a little excess water. Okay, I think we're pretty good here. If I really wanted to just have a damp page, I could take a paper towel and roll it across here. So now, my photograph, we have a beautiful, gorgeous bunch of yellow up here. There's pieces of yellow up in there. There's pieces of yellow back in here. There's yellow here. And then we have more of this tanny yellow down in this lower area, and it's going to be quite light, so I've got to be careful not to put that down too dark. But let's start with that beautiful, bright yellow. And I've actually got a little stand here in front of me that I'm going to put this picture on. Okay, so it's going to overlap into this, and just flooding this gorgeous, gorgeous yellow in here. And it's going to come down. That's the barn. There's some blue there. Okay, I don't want to come down too much. Oh, you know, there's actually some yellow back in that far distance too. Getting a little bit of noise from my husband's project out there. Okay, now let's get a little new gamboge in here to get a little darker orange. Oh, and this piece up here, maybe it's a little darker orange. Down in here, let's get a little of that in here. And rinse my brush, get it on the rag. Rag is my friend. That rag is my friend. Now, there's a little feeling of, because these leaves change, these are aspen trees, and the leaves change at different rates, so they're not all turned completely yet. So some of them are still a little on the green side. So I'm just putting a little green in here to give that feeling. And down in here too, there's a little, some of that can have a little feeling of green in it. And let's see, what do we have here? That's that. All right. Now let's get some of that French ochre. Oh, good. One advantage of working out of the pan, I'm going to just take that up into there just a little bit. This is going to come all the way up. See, now the advantage of having done the resist is now I can paint right into that building and not be at all concerned about it. And that's the dark side of the building, so let's just roll some brown into there. Just getting the hint of where that feeling of these brown colors are going to run. We're going to go much darker down in the very front here, but I want to establish this undercolor to start with. And now we could go just a wee touch darker. I just got into my burnt sienna a little bit, and I'm just feeling like maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit of my quinacridone gold. I like that better. Quinacridone gold is definitely the color. So run some of that in here for where those grasses are going to be. And I'll bring it down into this dark area, even though that's going to get more darks in on top of there, which is really going to change the feeling of that. And there's lights that run in through there, so I've got to be careful not to get too dark into any of these places that have got a lot of light. And here back behind this and these trees are going to go quite a lot darker, so other than worrying about having hard lines like that, and I'm going to just rinse my brush a little bit because I don't necessarily want this super yellow. I do want some yellow feeling on these trees, but I don't want them super yellow. And even as they get down there further, I'm seeing more of a grayish tone to it. Same with up here. Let's just pick a little bit of this off with my damp brush. Okay, what else? Now, maybe I'm a little too dark in my yellow up here. So let's just, once again, rinse my brush because I need this really light and bright. And if I get, yellow is a color that if it's put down too thick will get very, it's got a little opacity to it. And so it tends to lose its light, bright freshness if it gets too dark. So I'm going to just pick a little bit of that off. I don't want to do too much of it off, but a little bit. Oh, and we don't need that piled up there. We're going to get a bleed back if I leave that. And then let's just do a little bit more Aurelian yellow down in here. And that's a little drier surface, so this is coming in a little more uneven. And oh, this is maybe too yellow. This is going to get that blue hill back behind there. And yes, in between here, this is too yellow. Let's lighten that up, because if that's too much yellow, I mean, I want some, because I'm seeing a yellowy brown for the hill areas, but, and then once again, so that's going to be right in here. Let's pick a little of that off. So I'm dampening my brush and then putting it on my rag to get it, I'm rinsing it, getting it on my rag to get it 3/4 dry so that it's just a little bit damp. Okay. I think that that'll be okay. Like I said, a little bit of yellow underneath there is not going to hurt anything because that's not a bright blue. It's a dull down blue, and it can go on top of that yellow without a problem. I've got a hair there, which I better just ignore and pull out later. It can, if it leaves a mark, it can look like a branch. It'll be fine. Oh, over here too. Let's get a little of that yellow out of there. Okay, Margaret, I think we need to just stop. I can put a little bit more color down in here, but we can worry about that later. Just break that up a little tiny bit. Okay, I think I'm going to stop, get out of here. This has got to dry before I can do the next layer of the blue on there. So, you know, where we've come so far is that we're getting that sense of yellows in here. The blues will come in and change this quite a bit. We've used resist to hold anywhere that there was going to be bright white, even though it's going to get darker next to it. My shadow area will be coming in on top of here. These trees will be much darker than the background, so I'm not worrying about them, but I wanted a little hint of yellow on them, and so that was one reason to leave them here. What else did we need to talk about? I think that's it for right now. So that's it for this part of the demo. We'll see, I don't know whether we'll do any of the blue on here today. I think I'm going to probably wait and do that on the next round. So talk to you later.